Ladies and gentlemen, what if the struggles you're facing right now aren't random? What if the unanswered prayers, the delays, and the detours are not signs of failure, but whispers of something extraordinary unfolding behind the scenes? Imagine for a moment that God is planning something far greater for you than you've ever dared to dream, something beyond your current circumstances, beyond your imagination, beyond what seems possible today. We often live our lives confined by what we can see, touch, and control. When things don't go according to plan, we feel abandoned, frustrated, and even question whether God is still present. But what if the very confusion you're experiencing is the preparation for a divine breakthrough? What if, in the silence, God is rearranging circumstances to align perfectly with a destiny you cannot yet comprehend? History is filled with stories of ordinary individuals who walked through seasons of uncertainty, unaware that God was preparing them for something monumental. The darkest nights, the hardest trials, they were not the end of their story, but the foundation of a remarkable plan. So before you give up, before you settle into hopelessness, ask yourself, what if God is planning something big for me? What if this, right here, is the preparation for a miracle? God's plans are often hidden from our immediate understanding, concealed beneath the surface of our daily struggles and uncertainties. This hidden nature is not a sign of neglect or indifference, but a fundamental part of how the divine works. When we think about it, much of life's beauty is born in secrecy. Seeds grow beneath the soil, unseen by human eyes, until the moment they break through the ground. A child is formed in the quiet sanctuary of a mother's womb, away from the world's gaze. In the same way, God's plans for our lives often unfold in ways we cannot immediately perceive. Human nature craves clarity. We want to see the path laid out before us, to know each step before we take it. Yet faith does not thrive on clarity. It is nurtured in trust. If everything were visible, if the full picture were revealed from the start, there would be no need for faith. God, in His wisdom, keeps much of His work hidden, so that our hearts learn to rely on Him rather than on our own understanding. There are moments when life feels stagnant, when prayers seem to echo into silence. In those moments, it is easy to assume that God is inactive, but the apparent stillness is often the stage upon which the most profound work is being done. Consider how the roots of a tree grow in darkness, long before the branches reach toward the sky. The absence of visible progress does not indicate the absence of divine activity. God's hidden plans often involve preparing us for responsibilities we cannot yet handle. If we were given everything we asked for at the exact moment we desired it, we would likely misuse or misunderstand the gift. Growth requires time, and transformation demands patience. The caterpillar does not emerge as a butterfly in a single moment. It must endure the cocoon, that dark, hidden place where its true potential is realized. History and scripture are replete with examples of God's hidden plans. Joseph, sold into slavery and imprisoned unjustly, could not have known that these trials were positioning him to become a ruler in Egypt and a savior for his family. Esther, living as a seemingly insignificant Jewish girl in a Persian palace, had no idea that she was being prepared for such a time as this. The hiddenness of God's plan did not negate its existence. It merely required time to be revealed. In our own lives, the unanswered prayers and closed doors might be divine tools, shaping us, humbling us, and preparing us for what lies ahead. God's hidden plans are not an indication of His absence, but evidence of His intricate, loving involvement in every detail of our lives. If we can resist the urge to demand immediate clarity and instead trust in the unseen, we may one day look back and realize that the silence was filled with God's sovereign work, preparing us for something far greater than we ever imagined. Trials are often preparations, though we rarely see them that way when we are in the midst of them. Human nature instinctively resists discomfort and pain, viewing difficulties as obstacles rather than opportunities. Yet, in the divine scheme of things, trials are not random acts of suffering, but purposeful seasons of preparation. They serve to refine, strengthen, and equip us for the roles we are meant to fulfill. What feels like a setback is often the groundwork for a breakthrough. When gold is mined from the earth, it is far from the shining metal we recognize. It is mixed with impurities, rough and unrefined. To become pure, it must be subjected to fire, a fire so intense that the impurities are burned away, leaving the gold in its most valuable form. In much the same way, our trials act as refining fires. They burn away complacency, pride, and false dependencies, leaving behind a heart that is stronger, wiser, and more attuned to God's purpose. It is easy to misunderstand the presence of trials. We often associate difficulty with divine displeasure, assuming that if life is hard, God must be distant. But the truth is quite the opposite. The presence of trials can be a sign of divine involvement, a testament to God's commitment to our growth. A gardener prunes a tree not to harm it, but to help it bear more fruit. The pruning process is painful for the tree, yet it is essential for its flourishing. In the same way, God sometimes prunes our lives, removing what is unnecessary and strengthening what remains. Consider the story of Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. From a human perspective, his life seemed like a series of cruel misfortunes. Yet, from a divine perspective, every trial was a stepping stone to his destiny. The years of hardship prepared him to become a leader in Egypt, capable of saving not only his family, but entire nations during a time of famine. Had Joseph not endured those trials, he would not have developed the wisdom, resilience, and compassion required for his extraordinary role. Trials teach us dependence on God. When life is smooth, we often believe we are self-sufficient, relying on our own abilities and plans. But when we encounter struggles beyond our control, we are forced to turn our eyes upward, to seek help beyond ourselves. It is in these moments of surrender that we discover the depth of God's presence and the strength of His grace. Furthermore, trials prepare us for empathy. A person who has never faced pain may sympathize with others, but one who has walked through the fire understands suffering in a way that words alone cannot convey. This understanding allows us to comfort, guide, and uplift others with genuine compassion. In the end, trials are not obstacles in our path. They are the tools by which God shapes us for the greater tasks ahead. The pain we endure today may very well be the preparation for a purpose we cannot yet imagine. Small steps often lead to big destinies, though the journey rarely feels significant while we're taking those steps. We live in a world that celebrates instant success, where grand achievements are highlighted, while the small, quiet efforts that pave the way are often overlooked. Yet in God's design, the most remarkable destinies are not forged in sudden moments of triumph, but through a series of small, faithful steps taken with trust and perseverance. When we think of great accomplishments, we tend to focus on the final outcome rather than the process. We see the towering tree but forget the tiny seed that was buried in the soil. That seed, though small and seemingly insignificant, held within it the potential for greatness. Its growth was not immediate. It required time, nourishment, and patience. In the same way, God often starts with small, unnoticed beginnings to prepare us for something far larger than we can comprehend. The human desire for quick results can make us dismiss the importance of small steps. We want the mountain to move at once, forgetting that many great journeys begin with a single step. Every act of kindness, every prayer uttered in faith, every moment of integrity in the face of temptation, these are the small steps that build the foundation for a greater destiny. God does not measure progress by human standards of success, but by the faithfulness with which we take each step He places before us. Consider David, a shepherd boy tending sheep in obscurity. His days were filled with routine tasks that seemed unrelated to greatness. Yet, in those mundane moments, he developed the courage and skill that would later help him defeat Goliath. The small step of protecting his flock from lions and bears was preparing him for the much larger step of defending his nation. Had he despised those small, hidden tasks, he might never have been ready for the giant that awaited him. Small steps also teach us humility. If God revealed the full scope of his plans all at once, we might be overwhelmed or tempted by pride, but when he leads us step by step, we learn to rely on his guidance rather than our own understanding. Each small act of obedience, each decision to trust when the path is unclear, draws us closer to the heart of God and prepares us for the greater responsibilities ahead. Moreover, small steps cultivate endurance. It is easy to remain motivated when the results are immediate, but enduring faith is built when we continue walking even when the road seems endless. God's work often unfolds gradually, allowing us to develop the strength, wisdom, and resilience needed to sustain the destiny he has prepared. Ultimately, the small steps we take in obedience and faith are never wasted. They are the threads God weaves into the larger tapestry of our lives. What seems insignificant today may be the very foundation upon which God builds something extraordinary. The key is not to despise small beginnings, but to walk each step with the trust that God sees, knows, and is preparing something greater than we can imagine. Divine timing operates on a different scale than human timing, a truth that often tests the very core of our faith. We live in a world governed by clocks and calendars where minutes and deadlines dictate much of our lives. When we pray, plan, or dream, we expect results to follow swiftly, as if God should respond according to our schedules. Yet God's timing is not constrained by human impatience. His plans unfold in perfect alignment with purposes far greater than our immediate understanding. When we experience delays, it is natural to question whether God has heard us. We grow restless when answers don't arrive when we expect them. However, delay is not denial. God's silence does not mean absence. It often signifies preparation. Just as a farmer does not harvest the crop immediately after planting the seed, God allows time for growth, for maturity, and for circumstances to align according to his greater plan. The waiting period is not wasted time. It is the classroom of faith, teaching us patience, trust, and humility. Throughout history, God's timing has consistently defied human expectations. Abraham was promised descendants as numerous as the stars, yet he waited decades for the birth of Isaac. Joseph received visions of leadership, but spent years in slavery and prison before stepping into his role. Moses was called to lead Israel, but endured 40 years in the wilderness before the fulfillment of that mission. In each case, the waiting was not incidental, it was integral to the process. The years of delay were years of preparation. Had these individuals received their promises immediately, they would have lacked the character, wisdom, and resilience required to fulfill their roles. Human timing is often driven by urgency, but divine timing is governed by purpose. We want immediate relief from discomfort, while God is more concerned with our growth and the ultimate fulfillment of his plan. The caterpillar, confined in its cocoon, might wish to break free prematurely, but if it does, it will never develop the strength needed to fly. The struggle within the cocoon, though seemingly unnecessary, is essential to its transformation. Trusting in divine timing requires surrendering the illusion of control. It means acknowledging that God's perspective extends beyond our limited view. We see only a single thread of the tapestry while he sees the entire pattern. What we interpret as delays might actually be divine protection or preparation. There are moments when God withholds what we desire because the timing is not yet right, or because he has something far greater in store. Patience in waiting reveals the depth of our faith. It is easy to trust God when answers come quickly, but true faith emerges when we continue to trust despite prolonged uncertainty. Every second of waiting, every unanswered prayer, every season of silence is part of a greater narrative. God is never late. He is always on time, his time. And when his timing is revealed, it becomes clear that the wait was not only necessary, but deeply purposeful. God's plan for our lives is often far greater than the desires we hold in our hearts. As human beings, we tend to dream within the boundaries of what we know, what we've seen, or what we believe is possible. Our prayers often reflect these limitations, asking for what seems achievable rather than what is extraordinary. Yet God does not operate within the confines of human imagination. His plans transcend our understanding, and His gifts often exceed our expectations, though they may come wrapped in circumstances we never anticipated. We frequently approach God with small, specific requests, a new opportunity, a resolved conflict, or a single step of progress. But God, in His infinite wisdom, sees beyond the immediate need. He knows what will truly fulfill us, what will shape us into the individuals we were created to be. This sometimes means withholding what we ask for in order to give us what we genuinely need. A child may cry for a candle's flame, unaware of the danger it holds, while the parent, seeing the bigger picture, gently refuses. In the moment, the child feels denied. In reality, they are being protected. Our limited perspective can cause us to mistake God's greater plan for indifference. We interpret delays as rejections, forgetting that God's timing is always purposeful. When a door remains closed, it might not be because we are unworthy of the opportunity, but because the door leads to something smaller than what God has prepared. The discomfort of unmet desires is often the catalyst that propels us towards something greater. If every wish were granted immediately, we might never discover the deeper, more significant path God has laid out for us. Consider the life of Moses. Raised in Pharaoh's palace, he likely envisioned a life of influence within Egypt's political structure. Yet, God's plan for Moses was far greater than anything he could have imagined. Moses was called not to political prominence, but to prophetic leadership, delivering an entire nation from oppression. His initial dreams were eclipsed by a divine purpose that reshaped history. Similarly, when the disciples followed Jesus, they anticipated a political kingdom. Their desires were rooted in earthly expectations, but God's plan was infinitely larger, a kingdom not confined by geography or time, but one that would touch every corner of humanity. God's plans also reshape our desires as we grow in faith. What once seemed essential may fade into insignificance as His purpose becomes clearer. When we align ourselves with His will, our hearts begin to desire what He desires. We find ourselves drawn toward purposes we never imagined pursuing, relationships we never thought possible, and achievements we never dared to dream. Ultimately, God's plan is not about satisfying our immediate wants, but fulfilling our eternal purpose. When we surrender our limited desires and trust in His boundless wisdom, we open ourselves to a life far richer, deeper, and more meaningful than we could have crafted on our own. What we perceive as loss or delay today may, in time, reveal itself as the foundation of something far greater than we ever asked for. Faith is the bridge between what we can see and what God is preparing for us beyond our vision. It is not a passive belief, but an active trust, especially when circumstances appear uncertain or even discouraging. When God is planning something significant for our lives, faith becomes the essential force that keeps us walking forward, even when the road ahead is shrouded in mystery. Without faith, we rely solely on our senses, which often lead us to fear, doubt, and hesitation. But with faith, we step into the unknown with confidence, knowing that the unseen is just as real as what we can grasp. Faith does not guarantee an easy path. In fact, it often invites trials that test its depth and authenticity. It is easy to trust when the sun shines brightly and all is going according to plan. The real test of faith, however, comes in the darkness, when prayers go unanswered, when plans unravel, and when hope seems faint. It is in these moments that faith acts as an anchor, grounding us in the belief that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating events beyond our comprehension. God often allows situations that seem impossible precisely to strengthen our faith. If every challenge were minor and every obstacle easily overcome, we would never learn to trust beyond ourselves. Faith grows in adversity. When Abraham was promised a child despite his old age, his belief in God's promise was not based on human logic, but on divine assurance. This kind of faith does not ignore reality, but looks beyond it, recognizing that God's power is not constrained by human limitations. Faith also requires action. Believing in God's plan does not mean sitting idly, waiting for circumstances to change. It means stepping forward, even when each step feels uncertain. Noah built the ark while the sky was still clear, trusting in a future reality that others could not see. David ran toward Goliath, armed not with superior weapons, but with faith in God's strength. Faith moves us to act in obedience, even when results are not immediate. Moreover, faith changes our perspective. When we view life through the lens of faith, difficulties no longer seem like dead ends, but like training grounds. We begin to see closed doors not as rejections, but as redirections. Faith allows us to find peace in uncertainty because we trust the one who sees the full picture. The storm that seems destructive may be the very force that propels us toward our destiny. In the end, faith is not about predicting the future or controlling outcomes. It is about trusting the character of God. If we believe He is good, wise, and loving, then we can trust His plan, even when it diverges from our expectations. Faith doesn't eliminate questions or doubts. It simply chooses to walk forward despite them. And as we walk in faith, we may one day look back and realize that every uncertain step was part of a grand design, far greater than anything we could have imagined. The journey of faith, trust, and divine preparation is not one of ease or predictability. God's plans often begin in hidden places, unfold through trials, and move forward with small, faithful steps. His timing, though mysterious, is always perfect. The desires we hold in our hearts may be limited by our understanding, but God, in His infinite wisdom, prepares something far greater than we can imagine. Our role is to walk in faith, to trust the process, and to believe that the struggles, delays, and unanswered prayers are not obstacles, but essential steps in the fulfillment of a larger, more extraordinary plan. So, when life feels uncertain, remember, God may be orchestrating something bigger than you dare to dream. Keep trusting, keep walking, and never underestimate the power of a small step taken in faith. The most remarkable transformations often happen when we persist through the unseen, confident that God's masterpiece is being woven beyond the horizon of our vision. Good luck on your journey of faith. May you find peace in the unknown, strength in the trials, and awe in the realization of God's incredible plan for your life. Thank you for listening, and may your heart always remain open to the magnificent possibilities God has in store for you.